All right, well, here we are with IK, very special IK. Um,
I'm sorry.
so plan was for everyone to review it and make sure we're comfortable eliminating all of these things. Did anybody run into anything that feels like we could address before we approve the concept of rescinding these policies? I'm thinking it makes sense to look at all the IKs in a batch, the ones that, they're earning a high school credit and then or actually, I guess are there just two that were related to that one?
So IK and IKAA are paired. Then the high school graduation IKF is paired with IKFA and ILBAA. So those are like a combo.
I didn't really follow the.
Say that again. IKA and IKA.
So if you look at the memo, IK is taking the place of or incorporating IKAA,
Yeah.
ILBAA, and IMBC.
Ah.
So those three are all folded into IK.
Okay, and then IKFA
Yep,
is folded into.
IKF. Yep,
You said IMBC is part of the IK.
yes. So in the memo, if you look at IK, it talks about the three that are folded into IK, IKAA, ILBAA,
Okay, I see.
and IMBC. My gosh, it's like
Okay, but that's very helpful. So let's look at earning high school credit, IK, and the three that you identified that.
Yep.
That are included.
Did we pass on first reading IK?
I was trying to remember this too, because I think what happened was I think we passed the first reading of IK, but then we decided not to rescind anything
Right.
at that meeting because we wouldn't have a second pass. I mean, until we had the second reading of IK.
Chime in.
yes.
First reading approved 1014, but it was approved to go also back to policy.
Is there some reason though?
I look.
It had something to do with definition.
There's some kind of one there.
But everything in this new IK incorporates the changes that we're compelled to abide by.
Yes, yeah. Because what IK does is it streamlines the number and placement of all those other policies and sort of parks them all into this one policy that covers high school credit in general.
It says numerous questions about terminology in the policy were discussed in addition to the need to review the 306 rules tied to the policy. Policy committee would review concerns raised and rework the policy. It was approved 7-1.
What was approved? 7-1?
IK, your first reading.
Oh, I thought you said 10 something.
7-1.
7-1.
It's like,
It was-
a long time ago. Okay.
No, so
Got it.
first reading on October 14th.
That makes more sense. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I remember that there was some concern that it didn't speak as specifically to the 306 rules as some people wanted it to. I think in terms of the policy to be rescinded, it does seem like it covers those effectively. But I wish we had more specifics on the definitions.
Starting with line 41, those definitions.
Yeah, because I agree with Patty, there was some concern about definitions, but,
Do you remember which definitions people were?
I think that Carrie had raised a question about, I don't remember what it was. Difference between interdisciplinary, I think she wanted interdisciplinary defined. But interdisciplinary, I think, is sort of defined in the section, line 100 to 105. Credit earned through achievement of competencies across disciplines or domains.
so maybe we could just add that as one of the definitions. I mean, I agree, it might be duplicate information, but it's gonna be easy to find under definitions. Just the first sentence.
Actually, we could just put it into definitions and take that first sentence out
Oh, that's true.
of line 101.
That's true. Yeah. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Okay. So 101 lines, or just that first sentence in 101 and 102.
And we're gonna move that into definitions, so that'll be definition number 8. Here, and I've annotated them. This is how sad I am. It's good. I know, that's good.
It's necessary.
If there's some other definitions in there, that's what I was just looking at, but I think that the definitions that are in here are the ones that came from here. So it was 30604B, 30602. The definitions of 30602 are extensive. I mean, extensive, does not include interdisciplinary credit, but includes things like department, educator. Seriously, plan, like, that's what I'm saying, like, they go, their definitions go from lowercase a to lowercase ac, so they go all the way through the alphabet and back to double A, AB, and then AC. And some of them have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I don't think we want to.
Very comprehensive.
Yeah,
You don't have to put that on, you don't think?
the ones that are in it are the ones that relate to what's in the policy.
Yeah, those are all, that's for all the three.
All of three.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean.
So what's the concern? Okay, so the other definition on 101, say we move it to definitions, which talks about interdisciplinary credit is credit that is earned through achievement of competencies across disciplines or domains. And, gives examples. Then it says districts shall reward credit for competencies learned through interdisciplinary learning opportunities. I think maybe the question is interdisciplinary learning opportunities not well defined? As opposed to interdisciplinary credit. So,
Learning opportunities is a definition on line 54.
Okay.
So if we define what interdisciplinary means, And then if you have the definition for learning opportunities. So it could be a class that is a hybrid of a lot of like English history classes that combine. Or it could be an extended learning opportunity where somebody is out maybe in a work environment doing something that would apply maybe to economics and maybe auto shop or something. There's a lot of different ways to sort of slice it.
Okay,
So, but maybe the point is to eliminate the word credit there and just define interdisciplinary. So that then we know what interdisciplinary means and we know what learning opportunities mean. Yeah.
interdisciplinary would just mean
Understand what that
across
is.
disciplines or domains. That part is it, yeah.
Because I think you're right that was the specific question between.
Yeah.
So that would change our definition slightly. Then what's the definition going to be?
The interdisciplinary means across disciplines,
Or domains?
e.g. physics, or domains, e.g. science. Right, so yeah, physics,
Cross-
PE, right, jumping on trampoline, I don't know.
You could, I used to do a whole
Right,
unit on sports physics.
so that would be like an example of something that's interdisciplinary. Learning opportunity would be towards that.
Okay, and so if that's what we're putting for number 8 on the definitions list, then we need to,
And I don't know if we have to define interdisciplinary credit.
right, no, I don't think
We
we
can
do,
leave it as
because
is.
I think we know what credit
Yeah.
is. So then we want to leave lines 101 to 102.
Yeah.
But maybe we don't need the parenthetical things here. We're putting that in
Yeah,
the definition.
probably superfluous there if we're doing it in definitions.
So then the definition is going to be interdisciplinary means across disciplines, e.g. physics, or domains, e.g. science.
Yeah.
That's the new definition.
Yes.
And then in section D, we're going to leave all of the sentences as is.
Or we can remove the
Strike
parent.
parenthetical. Strike the EDs, okay. Thanks for.
Hopefully that's what Gary was like.
Paulette, you got that? Okay.
And I know there was also some confusion about the minimum course load. So on 172, it says students shall be enrolled no less than 3 credits for its equivalent per year. Student. Year. So. So. No less than 3 credits, so. That's, and essentially that means that, I don't know, I guess I don't remember what the specific question was, but I think that the concern was just like, is that reasonable? But, it's not reasonable if you want to graduate. Oh, it's okay, it's not easy.
It's 20.
It would be 20.
We require more than 20, don't we?
We have a 20 minimum
Oh, that's right.
requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what we'll debate on. Well, because they brought down the standard.
But this does feel a bit contradictory with that. with, I mean, with, yeah, with that.
The minimum of
One
three.
year isn't very much, is it?
No.
I mean, you can't graduate in 4 years if you just have 30 credits per year.
Right, but they're
Right.
saying no less than three because there are some situations, which is why they give you these disclaimers about early graduation, special circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's where those are coming in.
Could, well, is the implication that because you're getting credit from elsewhere, that if you're taking three, you're doing
Right.
something elsewhere? Right.
That's the other piece of this is that learn everywhere component, which was section F. That you could be earning credit through different means that are not being enrolled.
So it's specifically enrolled,
Right.
That's what, yeah, that was.
So if you look at section F, they're talking about credit earned from the Learn Everywhere program. 1/3 of the credits will be accepted for graduation. So if you're figuring three credits times 4 is 12.
Yeah.
1/3 of 20 is about 6-ish. So that gets you to 18 right there.
I mean, it's pretty loose, the three per year. So I think it's a reasonable minimum. I can see it being more, but I don't know if that's specific in the 306, that it's, no.
It
Yeah.
doesn't specifically, so the 306.23 I 1 through 3, which is cited on line 173, is calling out the rule.
And that is three.
3. So 306.23 goes through the 20 credits and how those are supposed to be dispersed. That points to graduation requirements. At least 20 credits, regular high school diploma to all students. 20 credits need to be distributed as in the table. And then it talks about it's aligned with standards. In English, they need these things. In math, they need these things. So that it goes through and it talks about all of the specific and sort of granular pieces about how they need, for instance, social studies, which includes US and New Hampshire history, government and civics, economics, personal finance, world history. And that breaks even down. So it's all of that is included in there. So that's what that 306.23 is.
Doesn't say three credits.
Yeah, it doesn't say 3 credits. Anywhere.
Not that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, in I.
Oh,
306.23 I 1 through 3 in each high school. The minimum yearly course load for a student shall be at least the equivalent of 3 credits, except that this requirement may be modified for students in an IEP, early graduation, unusual circumstances, and then we have board policy in here.
Okay, well then that's.
so we have to,
That's sort of right.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
That's IK, which also includes getting rid of IKAA, ILBAA, and IMBC, because those other policies are now sections of the new and improved IK.
Maybe we should take a moment. Okay.
just to look at.
Like, hey. Sustained policy.
Are you,
I taking our animals.
Yeah, but we have. Okay.
yeah,
Right down here one.
It's like a big.
Take care. It was right after the. The fish. This doesn't look like.
Yes, the entrance.
On the back of.
So I think Byron, you were the one who called out the fact that, if this one does say interdisciplinary credit, yeah, can't be counted, may be counted only once
Yeah.
between, or will meet graduation requirements. So,
But it doesn't say that in this one, does it?
right, well, that's what he was mentioning.
So we could
I'm curious why that is.
leave back to,
They just omitted it by accident.
Does the new, rules say it can only be done once?
Yeah, it does.
interdisciplinary credit may only be counted once.
Once.
In what scenario could it be counted twice?
Well,
How
we
would you
have
even-
discussions between like credits and total credits versus credits for specific things, right? So maybe it can be counted for one of the. I think what our current policy is saying is it can only be counted for one of the specific
So,
areas.
oh, I see. So if you had a course that was like across English and science,
Mhm,
but that course could be counted towards science or towards English, not both.
exactly.
That's what that's saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the new thing, it doesn't say that.
Right, because not only are you earning credits, you're also earning competencies. And so if you have a course that's English and science.
Yeah.
You have some science competencies that have to be met in there. There's gonna be English competencies that have to
But
be
do we
met.
think it's reasonable to give credit? Okay, here's the math, right? So you gotta get to 20, and you took a course that's interdisciplinary. So it can count towards English, it can count towards science, but it's still only one credit,
Right.
right? So to get to 20, you still need 20 total, right? So maybe we leave that out because ultimately, like, I think what this is trying to say is that, one credit can't be 2 credits. Maybe.
I think it is.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know if we need to spell that out. I think that might be sort of evident.
It'd be half and half. Half the
I know that was
English,
my
half the
question
Oh,
too,
that's
right?
interesting.
You could do a half, you could do a quarter, depending on how long is the course, but then going back to that section D. The credits earned are based on the competencies that are met.
We could say interdisciplinary credits may only be counted once in meeting the total graduation.
But we're rescinding that policy.
Well, I understand, but we could
We add it.
to D.
We could.
Yeah,
Do you think that's part of why it's being rescinded?
I think so, because again, we're not counting just credits the difference between counting credit as a credit itself is that you're looking at seat time. You show up to the class, you sit there, you've been here for 180 days, you earn the credit for the English class.
Mhm.
Competencies are showing that you are capable of showing skills and understanding in a broader area. So an English competency might be persuasion and being able to persuade somebody. So if it's English science, maybe you're looking at environmental issues and you're writing about environmental issues to persuade the government to do something.
so you could get 2 actual real life credits.
You could, if you're meeting so maybe you've now learned the environmental impact of styrofoam coolers at the beach and why you're persuading the government to outlaw styrofoam coolers at the beach, because when they're left and they break down, all these things happen.
So I was gonna ask you how the credit or how the competencies translate to credits, but is that irrelevant at this point? But I mean.
No, it's very
we still-
relevant, but
We still need credit.
they still need credits.
Okay.
And so what we're starting to do at the high school, and again, the competency earning is starting with the incoming ninth grade starting next year.
Yeah.
We're starting to map out for the courses that are required. So like your English 9, there are certain competencies that you have to meet.
Yeah.
That have to be in that
That
course.
credit.
You can meet those competencies in electives as well, but the ones that you have to take, you better have all the competencies that you need in those required courses.
Mhm.
So if you know that you have 10 competencies that have to be met, and you look at your required courses and they only have 8, you better figure out where to put those other 2.
Mhm.
Because you're putting your students at a disadvantage who are just going to be taking the required courses.
Yeah.
if they can only get 8 that way,
Right.
they're gonna be out of luck with the other 2. They better be in bed.
I see.
So there's a lot of work that has to be done with the crosswalk to figure out, okay, here's English 9, what are they covering? Well, maybe we're not doing persuasive writing, maybe we're doing it in 10th grade. So we're gonna put those competencies here, we're gonna put other competencies in English 9.
Yeah.
So we're still at the beginning stages with that.
Mhm.
We haven't gotten to the point where we've got all of that mapped out, but that's some of the work that sort of folds into our focus area 1 for our strategic plan too.
Mhm.
Competency is like a layer of indirection to credit.
You could look at it that way.
Not easy. What's your advice?
I would leave it out because I could feasibly see where there is a course, and I'm thinking about honors courses, I'm thinking about maybe some of the dual enrollment that have so many competencies packed into them that it is a very rigorous course that you could earn the English and the science.
Okay.
And by saying you could only get one,
How do you, okay, here's a question. So it's, so if companies are, if you need 20 credits to graduate, and you need to have them in specific, you have to have these competencies met as well, right? What is the mechanism for deriving how much credit comes from a competency? Does that make sense as a question?
the credit is based on the course. So right now, the way some of the courses are set up is if it's a full credit class, it's usually a longer duration class. It could be a semester, it could be a whole year. The smaller credits come from shorter duration courses. Your competencies aren't assigned based on the credit. Your competencies are assigned based on the list that comes out of 30623, which talks about, or in social studies, here's one area. Understanding the history of the United States through multiple perspectives, including founding principles and the ongoing struggle to realize those principles. That could feasibly be one of the competencies that has to be met.
But how does that translate to credits? I think that's
Yeah, is credit
Where-
a function of course or is it a function of competency?
course.
Of course.
Okay.
But you're saying
And the course is gonna incorporate all the competence.
Yep.
that if you have a course that incorporates competencies in 2 areas, you could get 2 credits for it?
You possibly could if it's especially rigorous, because what you're doing is you're merging work from 2 courses or 2 large areas
Fields.
into one, right,
But ultimately that's defined by the curriculum at the school. Okay,
Right.
so the school is saying for this course, you can get 2 credits. Then you're defining that.
if that's something the school wants to do. I'm not saying that that's the route
Right,
we would
right.
go.
And then also at the same time, a student could say, look, I did this other learning, right? And I think I should get a credit of these competencies based on this work, and there's
Yep.
framework for that.
And who makes that decision? The principal?
It's all the curriculum work that goes on at the high school. All the department heads, all the conversations that we have, all that work, where we have to figure out where to assign competencies, who's earning what's counting as a course, when those courses are even offered sometimes. Because sometimes courses are not offered every year. Sometimes it's on an odd even cycle, sometimes it's on a fall, spring semester. Those are all decisions that have to be made at the school level.
Well, it's complicated, but it's exciting at the same time. I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence that this is a better way to teach.
And I think if you limit it to what it was in the previous IKAA, I feel like it would just be,
Yeah, I agree. No,
you're sort of dead ending things. You're not gonna give folks an opportunity to be innovative.
you got me there. I'm good.
Okay, so we're gonna rescind that whole IKAA.
Yeah, okay.
Gonna try to add them.
The next one, we're gonna send this part of this.
IL Ba.
ILDA.
A.
ILBAA.
How about the IKB?
No, not yet.
Oh, thank you. But you said that Alba is part of IKF. It's not, you're saying it's
No.
part of.
In the memo,
Okay.
IK is tied to IKAA, ILBAA, and IMBC.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
That's all right. There's a lot of letters.
My bad.
So we are trying to look at ILPAA.
Yes,
Yeah.
Do we have that in file?
yes. They're alphabetical, so it's.
They can do a good job. Wait,
It's almost as complicated. The access control briefs I was doing.
Graduation. It is interesting that even in 2015, we were talking about competencies. Still thinking about them. Really as credits.
There was a lot of work that had been done at the state level, even previous to 2015, with competencies that sort of came to a screeching halt in COVID.
Yeah, okay, this makes sense that this is.
That would be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one is IMBC. IMBC, yep, alternative credit on. Remembering the letters in order though is not so easy.
Alternative credit options.
Yep,
So the recommendation is to rescind this.
yep, because that's included in the new and improved IK.
And these are relatively old, the ones we have, they don't have line numbers on them. Although this one was,
This one's
this
from
was from 84, so I guess it was just.
Don't put the line numbers on for rescinding.
Saying in policy, for instance, that students that are hospitalized, homebound or suspended or expelled, does it say that we provide services to those kids? Anybody know?
I actually don't think so.
Should that be in?
Talks about a school home education policy program, and that points to another policy. Online remote learning opportunities. I think it's implied, it's not explicitly stated because we talk about learning everywhere. Alternative programming, alternative plans. Improved home education program. Then it talks about the individualized learning opportunities and alternative learning plans, which was another policy that we looked at prior. So I think it's included in other places, Nancy, but it's not explicit to this policy.
So you think of a student or in the hospital or something that you would develop an alternative learning plan?
We already do, and we're gonna see that that's gonna change.
So the IMBC has got some more, what I can see, specific language about there's a submitted plan, and the plan includes their expectations, and it's defined, etc. But I'm not seeing an IK thing.
Sometimes that's a good thing because it allows for more flexibility, but
Yeah.
I think that also can make it more confusing. Sometimes we like to have the specificity. What do you think about that, Patty? Is it?
Well, it's also in where we talked about IHPI last time's alternative learning plans with students, so it's sort of embedded in there. It's not. There's pieces, I think, in both. Because IMBC, the way we've got it, is pointing to a bunch of policies that no longer exist either. So it's pointing to ILBAA, which we're gonna rescind.
You know what's interesting is that IK also points to ILBA, even though we're rescinding it. So
The new IK,
yeah, online,
ILBA,
yeah.
not ILBAA.
Oh, got it.
So, I mean, I was wondering already about the difference between this and the alternative learning plans, but I'm assuming the difference is just that it's like single credits versus like a whole plan of how you're gonna achieve whatever you're achieving. And also now that is more geared toward everybody as opposed to just students on the
Right.
APs, right? So it would sort of cover, would it cover this or not? Because they're just specific credits, right?
For alternative learning plans covering,
Yeah, alternative learning plans would not cover just alternative credit options.
but if you look at
Maybe-
the second paragraph in alternative credit options, the request is submitted with a plan. So the plan could be as broad or as narrow as we
Oh.
want it to be.
Okay,
And if you have a student who's hospitalized or homebound or an athlete, what's their plan going to be? We've got to address that.
right.
I mean, you could have students who are competitive figure skaters, for instance, who have a different schedule,
Mhm.
who they have to leave school at a certain time every day. So, and we've worked around with all kinds of different schedules with students.
Mhm.
So that's gonna be part of
Maybe a plan no matter what. That's what I.
the plans, as well as the Learn Everywhere sort of puts a whole nother layer that we've got to incorporate and look at. And then in section I, in the to be approved IK, it talks about implementation, and the superintendent, in consultation with the high school principals and coordinators of curriculum, shall be responsible for establishing how to implement this. So who's going to approve this? Who's going to monitor this? Who's going to, like, all of that,
You said that's in the IH,
IK,
all of that's in IH.
Of the new one.
yeah,
Okay.
lines 181 through 197 talks about that, and it talks about identifying a person responsible for
Right.
approval, supervision, monitoring progress for
That's what-
individual learning opportunities and learning plans.
That's what I was reading that and I was thinking that in spirit is similar where it's just like oversight over the plan.
Right.
Actually. Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay.
Do you feel the hospitalization, the homebound, that's covered in IK.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't specifically say.
The procedure will be made available to the public. I guess we're calling IK the procedure or so much. It's the last, it's the last bullet on the first page of alternative credit options. So I'm just curious in terms of, because that specifies procedure, not.
So we
policy.
talked about that with the alternative learning plans and individualized credit options and the other policies that we wanted to make sure. When we talked about how it would be more transparent for students because there was a whole procedure in there. So
Right.
that's in those policies.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. All right, are we ready to move on?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna recommend using that one.
So we've gotten through IKAA,
ILBAA. And IMBC.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay, wow.
Where those go?
Where does go?
Yeah, it took us 45 minutes.
Great. How would folks feel about skipping homework for a second and going to?
We didn't have to do our homework? Fine, that works.
Because I'd like to get, we keep having these rescinding
Yeah.
recommendations on our list, and I'd like to just get through them.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, so we're gonna go to D on the agenda, which is high school credit. High school graduation requirements. And then E also, which is like the FA that we are recommending to your set.
That's this table of credits. I've seen so many things.
So, you know,
Didn't we just like
IKF.
Yeah, didn't we just completely redo IKAA?
Yes.
January.
Because they wanted a 20 credit diploma as an option before got into all the 306 changes.
It also pings on to a bunch of those.
Okay. But IKFA is thin. Current policy.
Which one? Parent policy?
IKFA.
What did I say? Parent. Oh, parent, like as in. Okay, sorry, I thought you were saying it was like parental. No. Yeah, it's pretty small. I messed up my paper, so
I know,
what have I done?
they're changing all of what we had before to this.
And again, this is where the board needs to make a decision on offering one diploma regardless of the number of credits, or if you're going to give students who earn 20 credits something called the minimum, the Portsmouth minimum diploma, the Portsmouth like there's that decision still needs to be made.
Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to catch up on the last meeting, but I was not at. Did this get voted on?
We didn't talk about it.
Okay. Because we did talk about it. But we didn't have a vote on it several months ago. I mean, several meetings ago. And I think I might have misunderstood this memo initially. Because somehow I was thinking we could still have the multiple. In my mind, I was imagining we could still have multiple options, but they wouldn't be named necessarily or called out in any particular tiering option. But I think Byron's point was that there would be no different options because everyone would only have to get to 20 credits, right? So Daniel is recommending, we do have,
He's not recommending, he's saying that either way. He could support it if the board went that way because there is alignment with, for IEPs. He's looking at it from the perspective of students on IEPs.
yeah,
He could support that. He's in support of whatever the board decides.
okay,
And then he says he supports the multi-diploma option for special ed students, but that the policy language reflects coordination for the IEP teams. Now it's up to the board to decide whether you want to specify the diplomas as different titles, where I think he's looking at it as long as students in IEPs can earn the diploma, he's fine. Where the board needs to think about is, do you want to name the 20 credit diploma the minimum standard diploma? Anybody who earns up to another level gets a different title, and then another group of students who earn up to gets still a different title. Or is it all, everybody's getting a Portsmouth diploma, whether you earn 20, 21, 24, 27 credits?
right.
That's,
People are earning different amounts of credits, but we're just deciding whether to name.
call them something
Yeah,
different.
Right now it's 25, right?
26.
26.
20,
Okay.
I don't think I like this. I think everybody should get the same diploma.
I do too. I think of it a little bit as like sort of the equity versus
Right.
equality discussion. Like, we want to help everyone achieve their best, whatever that looks like. And once they get to that
And
point,
it's on your transcript, what courses, so if you're applying to colleges, they're gonna know. I just don't see why we have to.
right? And I think we mentioned last time, it's a little bit, it's consistent with the removing of ranking students in terms of eliminating competition in an unhealthy way.
When I think of my son, he got a regular Portsmouth High School diploma. Looks like my two girls' high
Yep.
school diplomas, and not that he wouldn't have noticed any difference, I don't think, but it's nice that he got the same diploma that everybody else got.
do you have?
I don't know, what do you think, Barney?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the minority here. I just think it's a shame to see the standards because this is reducing rigor in terms of what's required to get a diploma. So I wouldn't be in support of legislation that enabled this. But that's once it's passed, I think that I agree that I agree with what you're saying, Nancy, in terms of individuals who graduate, and so I see it from that side too. I just think I'm concerned that we're reducing the standard generally.
All of the
Yeah.
306s are meant to do that
Yeah.
and to reduce
Yeah.
what students are doing, multiple reasons.
For funding. Yeah.
One of them. But it's also important to point out, students do get designation like New Hampshire Scholar.
Yeah.
Global, I forgot what it's designated, but their Global Scholar gets designated. So there are designations that students can still earn that
Yeah.
end up on the diploma.
Yeah.
So they do, they're on the diploma.
I think so.
How about the National Honor Society?
Naturally. So there's a lot of different, like,
Right.
distinctions that we continue to afford students.
Could we put on there, you have successfully earned 26 credits, or you have successfully earned 20 credits?
Interesting. Just like list the credit on the diploma.
Or 22 credit, however many credits.
Does that add back into the competition factor?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if it's.
And it's still in the transcript. And that's really what,
Yeah,
that's the currency piece. That's like, when you're applying to colleges, that's what you're using.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm fine with it.
I mean, there's also maybe an option of having like a very high designation. You know, where we could say it's a diploma of distinction or something, if we wanted to,
Like 30 credits. Just
sure,
what's
like
suggested here.
something that's very,
Do we ever have
it's
students
very
with
exclusive.
30 credits?
Probably, but then again, for some students,
Wait, I just saw your.
I don't want to, I think rigor is important for sure, and I think acknowledging its commitment to that is important. I also worry about the kids who are pressured by their families or some, or peer pressure or whatever factor is that causes extra stress on them that's then impacting their mental health. So I think there's kind of a balance of both sides of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. On that as like a concept, I don't think 20 credits versus 26. Like I don't think reducing from 26 to 20. Like I don't. I think the balance is good at 26. I think is what I'm trying to say.
The balance of the pressure
Right.
versus.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about if we were to do just like one very top tier designation.
Yeah.
So that there would still be something for
Yeah.
higher achieving kids to strive for.
And I agree. I think the transcript is the currency, and ultimately that's what matters.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's a little bit not. Yeah. So I'm good with just having the one diploma.
So then section A would go from line 104. We would skip all the way down to line 138. The diploma is awarded to any student who earns a minimum of 20 credits, including those listed in section. Can't read that. Section C should be C below.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't
where
see
are
where
you?
you were to begin with. Can you?
So if you're on line 104,
Graduation and diploma
okay.
requirements.
so you're gonna skip, because all of this stuff that's in yellow with this gobbledygook is for all the different levels.
Mhm.
So we're skipping down to line 138. A diploma, because you're going with a single diploma.
Okay.
A diploma is awarded to any student who earns a minimum of 20 credits, including those listed in section, I think it should be C below, and completes additional requirements in B below. So I'm not.
Well, including people who graduate early, so not.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, including those, yes, section B below, that's right, that makes sense, and completes in C below and in the Portsmouth High School Program of Studies.
I like that.
I'm happy with that. I do see your point, Byron, about reducing the rigor, but I think what you said is also true, which is that it's the broader law that's already done that. So there's not much
Right.
we can do about that at this point.
Right.
Okay. So if we go with that single option, is there anything else that needs to be modified?
But now the board had some discussion about that, so I guess it will end up being a board decision whether we
Yeah.
go with this or we do the different diplomas.
Generally, I think the board was in favor of the single option.
That's what it sounds
So I
like.
think
Yeah.
it'll be an easy thing, but we certainly should have the conversation. So I think this will be a first reading, even though we had a conversation about it. It wasn't a formal reading.
Okay.
Now what are we on?
Sorry, what about section D then? Okay. Highlighted.
So.
Yep.
Because it will be a diploma rather than.
It would be a certificate instead of a diploma, but those are the students who. It's documented in the IEP. They earn that certificate of completion.
Okay. So I guess I'm not understanding why that's highlighted in terms of being relevant to the,
Because the students, the special ed director needed to review that. There
oh,
was there was nothing in here that Dan saw that he opposed or,
I see.
and then the only other highlight is on line 232. Which I think is still October 1st.
Okay, so I'm sorry, D, section D, we're leaving that section that's highlighted then?
That highlighted part's going to
We delete.
come out.
So what will it say in terms of?
Certificate of
Certificate of
completion.
completion, okay. It's not the same as diploma, right? Do we want it?
Wait a minute, so they're not gonna get a.
This is only for students who in their IEP, it says that they have to have a certificate of completion. So it goes in and talks about students who in their IEP plan have this as part of their transition, students who are in high school, can't demonstrate competency, are still in high school until the age of 22, because those are the students who have profound needs that maybe we can't meet them we can't get them through all the competencies through the diploma. They achieve the certificate instead.
So that sounds like a different level.
I know it. I mean, that was my son, but he got a diploma.
It probably
Right.
wasn't in his IEP like that. In the IEP, it would say, because there are students that we have that are in different programs that they cannot meet those needs. And so
So you're saying we should keep this in?
they complete schooling up to age 22 because they're allowed to by law.
Right.
And then they move on to some sort of a transition program where it workforce or some kind of state. Student receiving a certificate, line 206, may participate in graduation or other documentation relating to the certificate. If the student receiving the certificate participates in graduation, the student's name will be listed in the ceremony with no difference in students earning a diploma. So these are the students that are profoundly disabled.
I still think it should.
I know.
Receive a diploma, but, I guess we're not.
I mean, if it's in the IEP, it's in the.
That's the legal
Legally
document. I
bound
don't
by
know
the
how
IEP.
many of these we have a year. I mean, maybe we have one every few years.
The new rules don't say anything about this.
It's 23.
Is E new?
What's new is the type of test that you're taking. The civics test has been a requirement for a few years now.
But now it has to be the
Citizenship test.
citizenship test,
Yeah.
and they need to achieve a 70.
Yep. And we've had a bunch of students go through and pass on their first try, so that's been good.
It references 706.23D4. Is that it?
Yep. Students may earn certificates of completion or equivalency diplomas, but not equal to a regular high school diploma.
Well, if it's in the IEP, I guess it,
That's an option because just like we're talking about students who stressing out to not get to 26 credits, there are some students who cannot earn 20 credits, no matter what they do. because they just have needs that the high school is not going to.
Especially when it's more focused on the competencies versus the
Right.
course themselves.
Right.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think I understand.
so we're gonna keep D in.
And E, that's not, E is just new as far as that being the civics test. And that gets uploaded to the state assessment database, so the state has record of students passing that, so that's in there.
What happens to the 30% that don't pass it? They don't get their diploma?
They keep taking it until they pass, it's a requirement. They continue to take it, they have to earn a 70%, they have to get a 70 on it. But they keep taking it until they pass, we haven't had that happen.
Is it hard?
No, it's a citizenship test. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty, I mean, you can take it online. You can take it online.
I will.
That's our homework, everyone has to.
Yeah, who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Like questions like, yeah. How old do you have to be to vote? Like all kinds of questions. It's really, it's a test.
Definitely.
What are the first amendments called, you know, all that stuff.
Okay, when did you,
It's sort of attached to their civics class, you know, so it could happen at any point between junior and senior year, depending on when they take it, so they don't wait for like. Everybody takes it in March of senior year, no, it's like, it's attached to that class, so that you are just now, you have all that information in your head. Take the test.
Very smart, very smart.
So when do they have to take it? Whenever they complete their civics course, because all that information's in that course.
Is it the junior years?
It could happen junior year, it could happen senior year. So,
You have a lot of time to make it up if you don't.
Is that like a one semester course?
and they can continue to take the test until they pass it.
I have a judge who's asked if we could do something in regards to the citizenship program that's 4th of July, along with high school students doing their civics tests and participating in that program. So I'm not
That's
sure
my
how we
timing.
could do the timing on that, yeah.
Because we want it so that it's the optimal time for them to take the test. Is right after they finish the course.
Sure, that makes sense, yeah.
Instead of waiting until everybody's taking it in April and
You don't remember.
some stuff you don't remember, or you might be in the middle of the course. And you're not finished with it, so there's questions you can't answer, you can't finish the course.
Is there like a constitution?
We have
In
to
September.
observe Constitution Day in September now by law, yes.
But that's different from,
Because Constitution Day is district wide, the civics test is just for high school.
oh,
All these legal things, yes, it's frightening.
Institution. That's fun, yeah.
well, then why mention it all?
Okay,
That's
We're on D.
well, we're trying to get through.
Oh, homework. We have to go back to homework. Oh, but if we do- we're not going with it.
If I'm following Cook's line of reasoning, we need to do H and I now.
Oh.
Because we want to get through the rescindables.
H, where's H?
H is IMBA, which is replacing IMBC. Is that right, Patty?
hold on.
Too many letters.
Wait, how did I miss that one?
IMBA is not replacing IMBC.
Oh, IMBC was right.
We
Okay,
already,
we already
did
did.
IMBC.
Perfect. All right.
Well, it's confusing. So.
Yeah.
IKFA, we already did.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Listen, I mean, I can't even read them the way I live. Wow, okay. So now we can go back to homework or we can move on to daily physical activity.
Homework, let's do them. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, let's go to homework. Okay,
My daughter was in the room when I was looking at this, and she said, there shouldn't be homework. What if I have a poem that isn't, you know, a safe home or a home that's not conducive to a quiet place for you to do your homework? What if you have to work because your family is, needs you to work and sometimes the others reasons why. You sit in your home.
Do you think that? I'm with her.
Yeah. Is this the new, does the state have anything to say about this?
About homework, yes,
Of course. Do we have
of
that?
course, hang on, I gotta find it, it's, 30604B 21, oh my gosh, 30604B 21A. 306. Here it is. Homework, including how it is assessed and accessed. There should be a policy on it.
100 pages long.
That's it. That's it.
That's what we have to decide is how it can.
There should be a policy relative to homework, including how it is accessed and assessed.
So was there any,
Yes, there is feedback. There it is.
okay. Well,
That's
where
not
is
it. Got feedback from all the peeps.
Oh, good, okay.
Oh, is this the memo review?
Oh, I was gonna say I didn't see a memo, but that's because it's here.
Yeah.
It's visible.
Oh. Information. Is this from the staff?
Yeah, we didn't do the student slash parent thing. Yeah, I'm still interested in doing, but it just felt like the timing was really.
I don't have one.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
So you had, oh, it was my fault, I had an extra bag.
So this was staff input.
Thank you.
And we could table the homework policy until folks had had a chance to look this and get input from parents.
We might get further that way. We can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do that.
Get homework off, let's do. Off the homework.
Yes. Isn't it? Thank you for giving the information though.
But just curiosity, does it say anything for people that just can't get their homework done?
In the state,
Yeah.
all the state is saying that is that the
Yeah.
board has to have a policy on homework. Including how it is accessed and assessed. How do you get the homework? How do you grade the homework?
And I also, I think we've talked about this before with regard to our attendance policy, but I know that another homework issue is consistency in doing makeup homework. And what parameters we set about that, because it's so different with different teachers and it's very confusing for students.
Yeah, I agree, and I know we're moving on, but I think that having consistency there and leading on the side of like students can sort of indefinitely finish their homework, right? I think would be where I would,
It kind of goes to
yeah.
what is the point of homework? Is homework practice? Is homework extension? Is homework work that can't be finished in the classroom?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
What is the purpose of it? And then once the purpose is identified, then the rest of it sort of falls into place.
Yeah. May I ask, Patty, do you have a perspective on that? On
Homework?
Yeah, just from your point of view with regard to curriculum and competencies and all.
Homework should never be new information. A homework is only effective if it's, because if you're practicing, I'm thinking about anything that you practice, if you're practicing it, those old sheets of math that we used to get, if you're doing multiplication problems, 15 of them, and you do the first one wrong, now you're doing 15 of them wrong, and now you've taught yourself the wrong way. So that's what's going to stick. The the best kind of homework is reading at home quietly. Reviewing materials. I don't think that producing things is necessarily helpful, and grading homework, in my view, is the same as watching a basketball practice and then taking the score of that basketball practice and putting it to the team's record. You've made a whole bunch of mistakes here and you would have lost the game. So we're going to put that as a loss as part of your record. No, practice is so that I can figure out what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, that seems inconsistent because I know my son has teachers who have it just completion is 100%, right? As long as you're doing the homework, you're getting the full credit for it, as opposed to some like partial credit potentially.
But I always worry about if a student is doing something. And I think about math because that's a very easy way to learn the wrong algorithm. You've now practiced 10, 15, 20 times the wrong way.
Yeah.
And then now you've got to unlearn the wrong way because you were forgetting to carry the 10 or
And you might not have someone at home to ask about it.
exactly.
I mean, I don't, yeah. Let me answer this. Is like I remember doing essays and papers that would take weeks to do at home, right? Is that no longer a practice or all those sort of, yeah.
A lot of the writing gets done in class, again, because what's happening in class is they'll do peer review and peer editing, which is helpful because you know yourself, you write something, it looks completely fine. You give it to somebody to proofread, you've repeated the word the, you've missed a period, you've got capitals in a
Oh,
bold,
no,
like
yeah,
it's
chronically.
having peer review go on and to discuss what your thinking was. I mean, I think as the students get older, there's more independent work. But I don't know that it's assigned as homework. I think it's like you're working on this thing, project, whatever. I think that the theory of homework has really shifted from what it was. And for me to grade it, I just, yeah, I don't know. What are you assessing? Are you assessing to your daughter's point that they have a quiet place at home, that they don't have, a job after school, that they don't have sports, that, are you
What
assessing?
about for like courses that are more rigorous, like honors levels courses? Does it make sense in that context? Or like dual, like the dual enrollment?
Dual enrollment, probably they're gonna have their own requirements.
Right.
Well, again, you're weeding out the kids who, if there's a heavy homework load, you're weeding out the kids who might have a job after school or, people who don't have support to.
From the honors, right? So I guess if the level of competency for an honors focused class remains the same, it's difficult. It's sort of it's hard to work within both of those constraints where you're saying this course is more difficult. You're going to learn, like you're going to do more in this course and like it has a certain level associated with it. And at the same time say, we're not going to hold everyone to the same standard because we understand that there's like different contexts that people are learning, which is both those things are true.
People to different standards. That's why I think the standard of not making a lot of the work you do to be done at
Be
home
done at home.
is probably more equitable. That's
It is. It does reduce. I think in practical reality, there's probably honors level courses where there's probably pretty heavy rigor outside the classroom. So you wouldn't sort of be reducing what's required.
What do other school districts do? I mean, the ones that have the high ranking like Hanover and Oyster River.
I think it's all over the
Schools like
place and, yeah, I think it's all over the place with by course, by content, by grade level. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. Yeah,
well, and that's probably why I think HSBA has been so big.
well, it's extremely vague in the rule. Like
Yeah.
you need to, how are you going to access it? How are you going to assess it?
Right.
Okay,
12:30 meeting.
Okay.
Upstairs, so.
Okay. Thank you.
You guys are almost done.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think we'll probably do one more and that'll be that. All right.
Thank you.
so
Thank you,
much.
Susan.
Thank you. Well, I'm learning a lot.
I don't envy your jobs at all.
All right, so we'll come back having reviewed feedback.
I mean, I think we should get from parents,
Research. Yeah,
really information from PTO meetings or all the youth decide to collect that. That's, I think, the missing piece.
I agree.
I think I'd want, yeah,
You do that, but.
I think I want to hear from, maybe this is in the staff, sort of, sort of my line of reasoning in terms of like I would be happy to hear data that suggests that not assigning homework doesn't reduce the overall competency that's achieved in the class. Like I'd love to see that as like real data, right? Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to spend 10 minutes on physical activity? If we do have some input there, do we think?
Or do you want to try to
I think we
distance education?
Is that easier?
Sure,
IMBA.
let's do that.
Which one? IMBA. This is all good.
Well, there's no input on that one, so.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's your thought.
That's off the list.
Okay. Name.
Yeah, they call it remote learning, they call it distance education.
Because it's now remote because of COVID. That's one of the things that COVID, it's your remote. It's no longer like correspondence school, which I think is what distance ed
Oh, yeah.
kind of harkens back to. Correspondence school. Yeah, well, that's way back.
That's. Okay,
The
so
306s say that all students shall have access to full year, full day instruction in person as required. Remote learning shall satisfy the requirement when conducted in accordance with C below. Which I'll get to in a minute. It says can be blended, hybrid online, in person, completely online, video, internet-based combination. And it should be when inclement weather makes it unsafe to transport students to or from. An option for a parent or guardian making a request for remote learning or as articulated in a parent-approved alternative program approved by the local school board. When the district offers remote learning, the school board shall be responsible for the development of a policy for the governance of remote learning. If a student is participating in remote learning, not making progress, the option to participate in remote learning may be rescinded. A parent or guardian may appeal a district determination that a student is not making progress, and a student shall remain in remote learning until the conclusion of the appeal.
that's interesting.
That's pretty much, I think, what's in here.
And I ask from your perspective, do you feel like we have our procedures around this pretty well set up? Like,
I don't think we use it.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. And then
I don't think we use it.
to me, it's always struck me as like really inconsistent and a little bit unfair because it seems like when you have a snow day, for instance, you're technically supposed to be prepared to have school, but you also have a snow day. So it's like, it doesn't seem like there's at least good communication about that, or like you said, like maybe we're just not using it. So
I don't
maybe we
think-
should just eliminate the option.
Well, but then that gets into, this is where the earlier question about hospitalized or homebound.
Okay, well then we shouldn't eliminate it.
So if a student can still, if they're sitting in a hospital bed with, I don't know, some broken leg or something, can't physically come to the building, but they can log into Google Classroom, they can complete the assignment.
Mhm.
They can watch the video of the teacher teaching the class, complete the assignment. The teacher has feedback with them. They can collaborate through Google Docs with the student to peer edit and have that's an opportunity for them to learn.
Well, and that's another question is that are we set up to have all of the teachers be all of our classes filmed and or live?
Well,
streamed like that?
we do have all kinds of different, software available for Screencastify, which will record what's going on the screen. Teachers will a lot of times do video of themselves because the laptops now all have camera. So they can do video of themselves going through a lesson. Google Classroom is used across the board.
But that's more for like a longer term thing, right? Like they're not just gonna do that for a kid who's out for a day or two.
Right.
So,
But
Plus-
it's an option where I think students are still going in and handing things in Google Classroom.
well, the more I think about this, the more I feel like we don't really have time to get through it today, because I think,
And we do have students who participate in courses through VLAX. So if they wanted to take German, they could probably do it on VLAX.
so that's remote, that's considered remote learning.
Virtual.
It's not other learning opportunities.
Right. Well, it could be considered both.
Oh, boy.
I agree with you, Pip. I think those things are different. And remote learning implies to me that like the district is still driving, but like driving the boat.
Right.
You know, just
Right.
remotely, as opposed to like some other source of information, which would be the alternative sort of. So I would want to think about this a little bit more in terms of what remote learning means compared to some of those other things. You know.
And I also think we need to think about the weather piece and whether it's something we're
Yeah.
likely to use, because I just think we need
We
to
don't-
clarify whether we are or we're not doing it, but to having it sort of up in the air doesn't seem.
Well, it's an option from the state, and what the state was trying to do with the 306s, and this goes back to the whole COVID experiment,
Mhm.
was when they shut us all down and they pushed us all into remote, everybody was at home.
Yeah.
There was a long tail on sort of ending that because of the concerns with masking and all the concerns that we were having back then. So there was a long tail on that,
Mhm.
where they really wanted to sort of draw a line in the sand and say, you can't just decide to go remote because the school's boiler is broken, and so now you're gonna move the whole school to remote.
Yeah.
Because you can't afford to fix the boiler, so they're gonna be remote for all of the rest of February, all of March, and part of April until it gets warm enough. Like, there were schools that were
Yeah.
thinking about that, like, well, we don't need to bring them in. We can do this. And it's like, well, they wanted to sort of say, no, like, you have to bring them back. And, but you can use it as, at one point it was blizzard bags, but you can use it as that. You can like, so there was like this, oh, no, you can't just like put everybody online because you can't fix your boiler.
Right. Yeah, and I do think that opens it up to.
It was like, oh, well, why do we need to bring them in? Because then all of a sudden, some of the smaller towns, well, why do we need to have school? We can just have them all at home. But we can't afford to have a building. Oh, okay, not really.
So, well, and the last thing we want is like, a couple of the classes attending school and a couple of them not
Not.
on the same day. Like that just doesn't make sense. So I think we need to find a way to build in some.
You're looking for which ones are carrying over?
No, what I was gonna say is, sorry, my voice, would it be easier for next time for me to drop the sample policy and scratch ours? Because you recommend doing the sample policy. So would it be easier for the group if I already do that for next time?
No, I like
I
having.
think it's easier to compare the two, to have
Yeah.
both of them to look at.
You can still have it. I didn't know if you wanted.
gonna take it away.
No, not this. I didn't know if you wanted me to do the strikeouts on our existing policy and then add already the New Hampshire school board sample in here. I'll still give you the New Hampshire sample.
Yeah.
You'll have the original, but it will be striped.
Yeah, I guess that, well, I don't know, but it's easy.
That's fine with me.
It's helpful to some people at the board level, I know. to
Yeah.
see the strike.
That's true.
I like to see the strikeouts.
The problem I have with the strikeouts is like sometimes it's so different that like
Everything is red,
strikeouts doesn't like have any
I agree.
meaning.
and then it's hard to tell what the policy looked like before.
Well, I think it as is. It's just Patty was recommending adopting New Hampshire School Board.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out which document you're gonna use as a base.
Right.
That's a good question.
What do you think?
It might be easier to strike it and carry it over so that we're working off of because a lot of this is verbatim out of the 306s that we're putting in. And then if there's something that we need to adjust, we can adjust it.
I think that makes sense, and as Paul had said, we can still look at the copy, the old version if we need to.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're here in 2 weeks.
That's right.
What is the date?
We did that, right?
No, I.
Yes.
December 17th.
Man, that's getting close to the sun.
Yeah.
We're far away from it. I don't think it's like-
The kids already.
I don't know, it's a little frightening. And then
Thank you.